I grew up believing I was lucky. That's what everyone told me. I was the miracle child, the one my parents were extra careful with, extra proud of. They documented everything I did. My first words were written down. My drawings were saved. My schoolwork was boxed and labeled. My behavior was monitored closely, not in a strict way, but in a watchful way. Like I was always being measured against something invisible. I didn't question it as a child. I assumed this was love. But there were rules I never understood. Certain colors I was discouraged from wearing. Certain hobbies they gently redirected me away from. Certain reactions that made them uncomfortable. If I laughed too loudly, my mother would flinch. If I cried too hard, my father would leave the room. And there were moments, small, quiet ones, where they would look at me with something like disappointment. Not anger. Recognition. As if I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. I didn't know until I was 24 that I was never meant to be myself. I found out by accident. My parents were out of town, and I was staying at the house to watch the dog. I needed a charger and remembered my father kept extras in his office. I opened a drawer I'd never opened before. Inside was a folder. Not a normal one. It was thick. Old. Labeled with a name that wasn't mine. At first, I thought it belonged to a relative. Then I opened it. Inside were photos. Baby photos. School photos. Medical records. Report cards. Handwritten notes. The face in the photos looked like me. Not similar. Identical. Same eyes. Same mouth. Same dimple on the left cheek. But the dates didn't make sense. They were dated years before I was born. My hand started shaking as I read the name again. It was my name. But with Junior at the end. I didn't know anyone else in my family had ever had my name. I sat on the floor and kept reading. The documents told a story my parents never had. I wasn't their first child. I was their second attempt. My older sibling, whose name I shared, had died at 6 years old. Car accident. Sudden. Traumatic. The notes weren't written like memories. They were written like specifications. She liked drawing but not music. Didn't respond well to loud environments. Preferred quiet play. Very observant. Sensitive. Then I saw newer pages. Pages written after my birth. Encourage drawing early. Limit exposure to music. Watch for sensitivity, don't reinforce emotional outbursts. Correct deviations gently. My stomach dropped. They weren't remembering. They were recreating. I found comparison charts. My milestones next to theirs. Check marks. Corrections. Concerns. One note was underlined 3 times. Not the same temperament. Needs guidance. I thought about all the times my parents subtly discouraged parts of me. The interests they tolerated but never encouraged. The praise that felt conditional. The way love always felt, measured. I realized then why I'd grown up feeling like I was impersonating someone, even when I was alone. Why I felt guilty for wanting things that felt natural to me. Why approval always felt fragile. I confronted them that night. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I placed the folder on the table and asked one question. Who was I supposed to be? My mother collapsed into tears immediately. My father didn't. He sat down slowly, like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. She was perfect, my mother sobbed. And then she was gone. They told me everything. How they'd been consumed by grief. How the house felt empty. How they felt robbed. How, when my mother got pregnant again, they saw it as a sign. A chance. They named me the same name. They dressed me similarly. They kept her photos nearby so they wouldn't forget. And slowly, without ever saying it out loud, they began correcting me toward her. Not maliciously. Devotedly. They told themselves they were honoring her. But what they were really doing was erasing me. I asked them if they ever saw me as my own person. My father hesitated too long. "We just didn't want to lose you too," he said. That sentence explained my entire childhood. The control. The fear. The pressure. I wasn't raised to live. I was raised to preserve a memory. I moved out within a month. I changed my name shortly after. Not legally at first, just socially. It felt like breathing air that belonged to me for the first time. The grief came later. Not for the sibling I never knew. But for the version of myself that never got to exist freely. The child who was corrected instead of understood. The adult who had to untangle which parts of their personality were real and which were survival.